You stepped outside this morning and the birds were already there, not arriving, already there, already positioned, already oriented toward the exact corner of the yard where you always stand. You probably thought nothing of it, but here is what was actually happening in the minutes before you opened that door. A chickadee on the maple branch had already registered the sound of your footsteps inside the house. A cardinal near the fence had already shifted its position in response to the light changing in your kitchen window. A nuthatch that had been working the oak bark on the far side of the yard had already moved closer. They knew you were coming, not because birds are magical, because birds are paying a level of attention to the world around them that most humans will go their entire lives without realizing. At the world they are paying attention to, the world they have been quietly, precisely, continuously mapping since the first morning you ever walked outside, includes you. Specifically, you, your sounds, your rhythms, your patterns, your face. Before you saw a single bird this morning, every bird in your yard already knew you were there. The question is what they know and what they decided about you before you ever had a chance to make an impression. Welcome to Bird Minds. What you are about to hear will change the way you move through your own yard, because the birds out there are not just present, they are informed. They have been building a file on you since the day you moved in, and today we are going into exactly what is in it. Stay until the end, because the final thing we cover is something most people find genuinely difficult to sit with, and I think once you hear it, you will understand why. There is a system running in your yard that has nothing to do with anything you put out there. No feeder required, no water bath, no native plants. This system runs on pure observation, pure information gathering, and it has been running continuously, every day, in every season, whether you knew about it or not. Birds build what researchers call a landscape map. A detailed, constantly updated model of their entire territory, every food source, every water source, every escape route, every hiding spot, every predator that has ever passed through, and every creature that moves through the space regularly, including the humans. That map is not vague, it is not general, it is precise enough that a chickadee can detect when something in the yard has changed overnight and respond to it before you have finished your first cup of coffee. Researchers studying garden birds found that birds notice environmental changes, a moved feeder, a new object near the bath, a different vehicle in the driveway, within the first visit of the day, sometimes within seconds of arriving. They are not glancing at your yard, they are reading it, and the section of that map dedicated to you is more detailed than most people would ever expect, because you are not just a feature of the landscape to the birds in your yard. You are a dynamic feature, one that moves, changes, makes sounds, arrives and departs on a schedule, and interacts with the resources they depend on. That makes you one of the most important things in the entire map, which means they have been paying more attention to you than you have been paying to them. The first thing birds know about you is your schedule, not approximately, precisely. Research coming out of long-term studies on suburban bird populations found that birds who regularly visited a yard with a consistent human caretaker learned that person's routine down to a level of detail that genuinely surprised the researchers. In one documented study, birds began repositioning themselves in the yard up to 12 minutes before a specific caretaker appeared, not in response to seeing or hearing her, but in anticipation of her arrival based on learned time patterns. 12 minutes before she opened the door, the birds already knew she was coming. That kind of temporal precision requires genuine memory, not instinct, not reflex, memory. The same cognitive faculty that allows a bird to remember where it cached a seed 6 months ago is the faculty it uses to track when you typically appear, what you typically do when you arrive, and what that means for the resources in the yard. Your schedule is not private. The birds in your yard have known it for longer than you realize, and they have been organizing their mornings around it, adjusting their foraging patterns, their positioning, their activity levels, based on what they know about when you show up and what you do when you get there. The slightly uncomfortable implication of this is simple. You thought you were watching the birds. The birds have been watching you back, and they started first. The second thing birds know about you is your face. This is the piece of research that stops most people when they first encounter it, because it feels like the kind of thing that should not be possible for a creature with a brain the size of a walnut. And yet the evidence for it is some of the most rigorous in the entire field of animal cognition. A landmark study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences tested whether American crows could identify specific human faces. Researchers wore masks while interacting with crows in ways that were either threatening or neutral. The results were clear and remarkable. Crows not only identified and remembered the threatening face, they continued to respond to it years later. They responded to it even when the people wearing it changed their clothing, their hats, their body language. The face was the identifying feature, and the memory attached to it did not fade. What made the study genuinely extraordinary was what happened next. Crows who had never personally encountered the threatening researcher began responding to that face with the same avoidance behavior as the crows who had direct experience. The information about a specific human face had spread through the local crow population through social learning. A memory that began with one bird's experience became community knowledge. For your yard specifically, the birds that visit you are not seeing a generic human when you appear. They are seeing your face, and they have already categorized it, filed it under a specific assessment that shapes every interaction they will ever have with you from this point forward. The question is not whether they know your face. The question is what expression was on it the last time something went wrong in your yard. The third thing birds know about you is your threat level, and they communicate it to each other constantly. Every time you step outside, a chickadee broadcasts an assessment of you to every bird within 100 feet. You already know the sound, that familiar chickadee call that most people hear as cheerful background noise. But the number of D notes at the end of that call is not decoration. It encodes specific information about the size and danger level of whatever the bird is reporting. When you walk into your yard, you are being described in real time to every species that can hear it. Your size, your movement pattern, your speed, your predictability, all of it translated into a call that nuthatches understand, that titmice understand, that juncos and wrens and finches all understand as fluently as if it were their own language. If the chickadee that sees you adds only 2 or 3 D notes, low urgency, known quantity, carry on. Every bird in range relaxes. Feeding continues. Contact calls resume. The yard stays alive. If the assessment comes out differently, more notes, higher urgency, every bird in range responds accordingly. Not because they all saw you, because they all heard what the chickadees said about you. Your reputation in your yard is not held privately by one bird. It is distributed across an entire network of animals who talk to each other constantly. The yard's collective opinion of you is being shared and updated in real time every single morning, whether you are aware of it or not. And here is the part that should make you stop completely. That opinion can change. It changes based on what you do, consistently, over time. The chickadee that used to spike its alarm when you appeared will eventually, given enough mornings of you moving quietly and leaving without incident, reduce the urgency of that call. And when the urgency reduces, the whole network updates. The whole yard shifts. One bird's revised assessment of you becomes everyone's revised assessment of you. You do not have to earn the trust of every bird individually. You only have to earn it from the ones paying the closest attention. The rest will follow. The fourth thing birds know about you is harder to name, but it is the one that matters most. They know whether you are present, not physically present. You can be standing in the middle of your yard and be completely absent to the birds in it. Absent in the sense of not really being there, moving through the space without attention, checking your phone while you fill the feeder, walking quickly through the garden without pausing, being in the yard the way most people are in most places, physically located but mentally somewhere else entirely. Birds read this, not because they have some mystical sensitivity to human consciousness, because presence and absence look completely different from a behavioral standpoint. A person who is genuinely paying attention moves differently, pauses differently, makes eye contact differently, responds to the birds rather than simply existing near them. And birds who have spent their entire evolutionary history reading the behavioral signals of every creature that moves through their territory are extraordinarily good at distinguishing between a creature that is paying attention and a creature that is not. The people who develop the deepest connections with the birds in their yards are not always the ones who know the most about birds. They are the ones who show up and actually pay attention, who pause when a chickadee calls, who look up when something changes in the sound of the yard, who are genuinely curious about what is happening in the branches above their heads rather than simply performing the motions of being a bird person. The birds know the difference. They have always known the difference. They are waiting to find out which one you are. Here is what all of this adds up to. The birds in your yard have known you longer than you have known them. They knew your schedule before you realized they were tracking it. They knew your face before you understood that mattered. They have been broadcasting their assessment of you to every creature in the yard since the first morning you walked outside. And that assessment has been shaping every interaction you have ever had with the wildlife just beyond your door. You did not start from zero with the birds in your yard. You started from wherever your behavior put you. And you are building from there, forward or backward, with every single morning you show up. The remarkable thing about all of this is not how sophisticated the birds are, although they are more sophisticated than most people ever get told. The remarkable thing is what it means for you. It means the relationship that exists between you and the birds in your yard is not casual. It is not incidental. It is not the product of a feeder and some seed and a bit of luck. It is the product of every morning you have shown up, every movement you have made, every sound you have produced, every time you were present and every time you were not. It is, in the truest sense of the word, a relationship. And like every relationship, it reflects back exactly what you have put into it. The birds already know what that is. The question is whether you do. Go outside tomorrow morning and pay attention differently than you have before. Not to what you are doing out there, to what is happening around you while you do it. Which birds stay when you appear? Which ones move further away? What the chickadee says when you come into view? Whether the cardinal keeps singing or goes quiet? The yard has been giving you information this entire time. You just now have the language to read it. Tell me in the comments, when you go outside tomorrow morning and really pay attention, what do you notice that you never noticed before? I want to hear what you find. I read every single one. I will see you in the next one.